Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first working group meeting for the Community Facilities Working Group. My name is Chris Rabasco. I'm a planning associate with Michael Baker International. I'm working closely with my colleague Hannah Clark and South Whitehall Township staff as the township works through its 2021 comprehensive plan update. Um, and again, this process is a part of phase 4 of South Whitehall's comp plan update. Of course, we thank you for joining us and being with us throughout this process thus far and taking the time to join the intro meeting, volunteer for working group, go online, put your scheduling in and everything. We really appreciate it. This meeting and series of working group meetings is meant to collect community input from residents or people that live within the township. Um, and even though, we realize some of you may have roles within the township, we would really like to keep these meetings from the perspective of a resident and use that lens to guide today's discussion. Before we dive in, since we're going to be spending a series of meetings together, 3 in total, um, this is the first one next week with Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. Then we have, I believe, a week off and then another meeting to discuss recommendations. I think it makes sense to go around and give quick introductions so we know we can put a name to someone's voice and hopefully a face if you have video on. Um, so like I said, I'm Chris Rabasco. I'm a planning associate with Michael Baker. I'm helping run the engagement process for the township. I will be facilitating the community facilities work group and the resource protection work group. With that, I'll hand it off to Greg for an introduction.
Hi, my name is Greg Adams. I'm the municipal planner for South Whitehall Township, and for the purposes of these meetings, somewhat of the historical expert.
Thanks, Greg. Robert?
Hi, everyone. My name is Robert Emanuel. I am a graduate planning student at Temple University, and I'm currently interning for South Whitehall Township.
Mike?
Hi, everybody. It's Mike Cookitz. I am the Parks and Recreation Manager here in South Whitehall Township.
Thanks, Mike. Marcia?
Hi, I'm Marcia Armstrong, and I am a resident. I am not only a resident here, but a new resident. I moved from Boston in September last year and spent a lot of time in my house. And I'm in the Regency of South Whitehall, so interested in new development and all that kind of thing.
Great. Happy to have you. Monica?
Hi, I'm Monica Hodges. I have my video off because there's a lot of activity going on here, but I am a resident of South Whitehall. I've been a resident since about 2006, and I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for joining. And I think lastly, we have Elizabeth. Elizabeth, if you're there, I think you're muted. If not, we can jump ahead. So again, thanks everyone for joining. And just so you're aware, what we have up on the screen right now is the Community Facilities Workbook, which hopefully everyone is familiar with. We have already used parts of this for the intro meeting to present some of our existing data and guiding data. We also just want to remind everyone that it is an active resource. It's meant to be a tool and a guideline as we work through this entire process. As you'll see, there are plenty of sections for notes and for you to write down questions to have a placeholder as we go. And they'll guide some of the discussion questions that we have later on in this meeting and in future meetings so you don't forget your input, because some of this we might fly through pretty quick. Also, if for some reason you forget to say something in this meeting or you don't get time to voice a specific thought, we have an active Google form online, which everyone has been given a link to, that contains the exact same discussion templates and everything that we're going to be working through in these meetings, and you can provide input there. Also, feel free to put any input you may have in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to it. And just another reminder that you can pick up a physical copy of the workbook at the South Whitehall Municipal Building. They have plenty of copies there for you if you'd rather, use pen and paper to write down your comments. And so with that, I think we'll get started, and we're gonna start with reviewing some of the items that were already previously reviewed in the introduction meeting on June 29th. So as we said, this is part of phase 4, the comprehensive plan update, the working group process, and a lot of this is guided by the municipal planning code, which all municipalities are required to consider when updating their comprehensive plans every 10 years. These are logical working groups that we have to gather community input, evaluate data, any future scenarios, and that this will all build towards us coming up with some recommendations that'll be implemented into the comp plan update. So up on the screen here is the timeline. Right now we are already at meeting number 1, which is the second item. There's this whole series of all these groups this week, July 12th. Next week, you'll have a chance to talk with some subject matter experts from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. Our meeting for community facilities is July 19th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. That meeting will also be virtual. Meeting 3 will be our meeting in time to develop some of the recommendations and build those out as we identify goals and key players and funding sources, things like that. And finally, we'll have a concluding meeting where we will all rejoin all the working groups and discuss everything that we have gathered as a group. Also, in your workbook for reference, we have links to all kinds of resources that will help guide this process. We have the overall comp plan blog. We have the links to the 2009 comp plan, which we'll be discussing later, and existing conditions reports, a lot of items that have already been presented in the introduction meeting, including some items from LVPC, also a phase 4 kickoff meeting and recordings. Anything that you may need will be in your digital version of the workbook and also on the subpage links that you were given over various emails throughout this past week. No need to spend much time here, but this is just broad contact information. Any questions you may have throughout this entire process, feel free to reach out to us and we'll gladly do what we can to satisfy whatever you need. It speaks on some of the guiding principles that were presented at the introduction meeting through various topics, focusing on, our resources, coordinated land use, and all of the things we want to keep in mind as we consider existing conditions, which is the point of today's meeting, as we look forward to, pointing out what we think is important in South Whitehall Township and our future recommendations. So like I said before, and has been discussed again in the introduction meeting, we're following MPC guidelines. These are put in place for local jurisdictions when they conduct the comprehensive planning process to make sure we are considering a wide range of, basic elements, and these elements are evaluated to build strong recommendations that'll, be the most beneficial for South Whitehall Township's future. During our kickoff meeting, we asked residents to, describe how you think of South Whitehall today, and we just wanted to include some of the previous feedback that we've already gathered in this process that we're only going to be building on today. People think there's a lot of opportunity here. It's a growing region in the Lehigh Valley, has a great shot at being diverse, and as we look to the future, residents, see the future of South Whitehall being exciting, great opportunity, lots of open space, trails, all things that we may discuss here in the Community Facilities Work Group. And there was some great information presented on framing concepts that hopefully everyone had a chance to look through. There was a growth and future land use scenario that was presented, as well as how this would affect future economic development in the township and future transportation effects on our transportation system in the township. And all of this information, again, is posted on the community facilities subpage. So if for some reason you missed the intro meeting or you haven't reviewed any of that yet, it's all currently available for your use. And we do encourage you to look through those, as that'll help us guide our discussion as we look towards the future of community facilities. You don't need to spend much time on any of this. This is, again, it's all in your workbook if you'd like to review it. Just some great data that's been presented previously. And so that leads us to today, which is Working Group Meeting 1, Existing Conditions. And today we'll be taking the time to present and discuss information from the previous growth, economic development, transportation scenarios, as well as the township's previous comprehensive plan, which was completed in 2009. The then additional comprehensive plan update existing conditions reports for 2019, the regional comprehensive plan, future LV, and all these things will help us guide our discussion. Our goals today are to identify significant data trends within the township, identify where updated data or just new data entirely is needed, and to complete our discussion template, which we're going to be using a program called Jamboard, which will simulate the classic public meeting feel of post-it notes and engaging discussion. And hopefully by the end, we'll have a baseline understanding of current data and information that'll inform our recommendation process. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Greg Adams, and he can begin to discuss some of our existing conditions for community facilities. Greg?
Thanks, Chris. I'm used to go-to meetings, so finding the unmute button is, a little challenging.
Every program's a little bit different.
A little bit different. Put the button in different places.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I want to start out with the MPC guidelines that are up in front of us right now. This is very important because the MPC is basically the state laying out how some of the municipal functions are permitted to work within the municipality. And with regard to the comprehensive plan, which is a requirement of the MPC, it lists a minimum of 5 areas that we need to have within our comprehensive plan. And one of them is, of course, community facilities. So this is very important. I do want to read this to get everybody's kind of focused on what we're doing here tonight. Subsection 4 states a plan for community facilities and utilities, which may include public and private education, recreation, municipal buildings, fire and police stations, libraries, hospitals, water supply and distribution, sewerage and waste treatment, solid waste management, storm drainage and floodplain management, utility corridors and associated facilities, and other similar facilities and uses. This group is doing a little less on the utility end of it. Our focus will be on probably the first number of items that I listed there. So that's out of the MPC. These are minimums, of course. We may add anything that we think fits the definition of a community facility in and make recommendations upon that as well. So let's jump into it. Next slide, please. We're starting out with the 2009 comprehensive plan. We think this is a good start. It gives us a frame of reference and a starting point to work from. There's a lot that goes into this, and it's nice to have this little touchstone of where we can ground ourselves and then move forward from. So this is the 2009 comp plan. It's the most recent comp plan, and it's the one that's currently in force today. These are the goal statements of that comprehensive plan. Now, I just want to say this because there'll be a lot of recommendations that are listed in the 2009 comp plan that'll be coming up in the next few minutes. We have achieved some of these. We've partially achieved some of these, and some of these we have yet to start. And that all, a lot goes into how that works over, well, it's been 12 years now since we adopted this plan. All of these that you're going to be seeing tonight are all useful in considering the goals for this group's recommendations. These are something that some of them may hold relevant today, some may not. It will be up to you to determine what is relevant and what is not, and what we may need to add to be relevant. And just so you know, all of these goals and recommendations are subject to review by staff and elected officials with regard to their priority, timing, funding, and implementation approaches. So just because they are recommended doesn't mean automatically that these kick in and start working. They are all subject to outside forces and the whims of staff over time as we look at these things and continue to move forward. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at these. And certainly if you see something interesting in here that you want to make a comment on or have a question on, just write it down in your workbook here, and we can address them later in tonight's program. So let's move to the next slide. This gives you the map that's actually in the 2009 comprehensive plan showing all of the community facilities at the time. And you'll probably recognize most of them because I think almost all of them are still present. Next slide. These were the recommendations for the community facilities from 2009. As you'll see, some of them we've achieved, some of them we've partially achieved, and some of them we've not achieved. So once again, look them over. If you see something interesting in there, take a little note off to the side, and we can you can ask your question or make your comment a little later in the program. Next slide. This is the same for Parks and Recreation. And fortunately, tonight we have Mike Kukitz, who is our current Parks and Recreation Director. And he may be able to talk to some of these things, particularly he's been here a few years now. So he may have a little wisdom as to what's been going on with regard to these recommendations. Once again, take notes and ask questions a little later. Next slide. This is the inventory. We have on the left what the inventory was in 2009. And we've had on the right our updates through this year. So as you can see, we have six nice bullet points on the left and a slew of nice bullet points on the right, showing that we've actually done a fair bit of additions to our community facilities in the past 12 years. Next slide. Oh, okay. This is, before we get up to Mike, I do want to point this out. This is the last slide I'll be talking to tonight. This is one of the tools we have available to us. This is our official map. It's one of 3 sheets, and this shows the community facilities that are shown on the official map. Pardon me, I've got a light that decides to turn itself off at a whim. The official map here is a tool that the township has. It portrays infrastructure goals of the township that may be achieved as part of the land development process. This map puts property owners on notice that the township has an infrastructure goal associated with their property. So when somebody brings in a land development for their property, we check the map. And that goal, if it's on there associated with a property to be developed, that's activated. And we have the opportunity to try to achieve that infrastructure goal as part of the land development. So it's a very useful tool. The official map we've had since 2010, and we've learned a bit about it since then. So this is something we will certainly have in our toolbox, and we may get a lot of recommendations that affect this map. So with that, if Mike Kukitz wants to come in and maybe give us a few updates as to what we've achieved through our community facilities in the last few years, give us some highlights, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, first and foremost, the section of the Jordan Creek Greenway Trail there from Ware Mill Road down to 309 was completed, and we're currently working to continue that construction of that trail up all the way through connecting to Cedar Crest Boulevard. Keeping some easements and some additional land here right along the Jordan Creek for all residents to enjoy for the foreseeable future. Also are currently working with a consultant group on the Kohler Ridge Park Master Plan. More to come on that. I can tell you we've been collecting public input and feedback and surveys for a couple months now. We have up over 300 responses so far from residents about this park. So there's definitely a buzz going around about this new addition to our park system. It will be our second largest park when it's said and done at almost 30 acres. Let's see here. We also have made some additional improvements in Cover Bridge Park. The most notable would be the new playground there that's being heavily used again by the community. And let's see here. Last, I will just mention, what was it? Oh, just touching on the Greenway and just the expanded open space. Eventually that trail is going to, this trail is part of a 4 municipal and county-wide plan that is going to be 14 miles in length, connecting Center City, Allentown up to the game preserve here, the Trexler Game Preserve. Last but not least, what I will say is that by the end of this year, we are planning to do a park recreation, open space and trails plan. We're waiting for this comp plan to be done so that the folks we bring on board to help with that plan can reference this plan, because obviously they'll go hand in hand as we move forward and come up with a specific plan specifically for parks and recreation here in the township.
Great. Thanks, Mike and Greg, for running through some of that for us. Before we jump to our discussion template, I want to make sure that we discuss some of the previous input that we gathered in the kickoff meeting specific to community facilities. Residents were asked to describe how they would describe community facilities in South Whitehall Township today. Pretty wide range of answers, exceptional. Good schools, parks and natural space always comes up. Some people think we need more trails, and that it's still in progress. Others think it's lovely and robust. So the classic wide range answers. And so with that, we're going to jump to the discussion template. But before we do that, are there any quick clarifying questions that either myself, Greg, or Mike can answer on existing facilities? And again, we are about to open up to a pretty wide-ranging discussion. So if you think it's better off that we wait for that, then we can. If you have a question about a specific goal or something you think is missing, we can hold that to discussion. But any clarifying questions so far? No? Okay, so with that, I'll direct everyone to the chat where I'm going to be posting a link to a Google Jamboard, and that's where we're going to conduct our discussion, and I'll show a quick demonstration of that on the screen once everyone joins. And just as a reminder, if you're having trouble joining this Jamboard, if you use the links in the correspondence that came out earlier this week and go to the community facilities subpage, you'll be able to navigate here to Working Group Meeting 1, discussion questions, and this is a clickable link. And if you click on it, it'll take you to the exact same discussion template. Hopefully it loads here, where say you forget to something comes to you at a later date, you can type in your name, make sure you click community facilities so that it goes to the right group. and you can just type in your answers here. But for now, we're going to stick to this Jamboard, and so that everyone's clear here, if you navigate over to the left side of your screen, you see a control panel. And right in the middle, or the fourth option down, there's an option to click on a sticky note where this wonderful sticky note pops up and you're able to type in any response that you find pertinent to our questions. And as we move on to additional questions, you're going to have to click on the arrow next frame as we go along. That'll make more sense later. If you don't, you'll just be stuck posting post-its to the same question. So with that, I think we could kick it off. So what information or data do you think is significant in South Whitehall Township for community facilities? It could be something that Greg presented, something that Mike presented. We touched a lot on some of the parks, open space items in the township, but we don't want to forget about some of the other community facilities as well. I'll give everyone maybe a minute or two to come up with something to post, and then we'll open it up for discussion. And this would be a great time to, if you would have reviewed some of the goals from, say, the 2009 plan, thought something might have been significant, or if you remember something from the presentations at the intro meeting that you thought was interesting or could impact community facilities, again, would be a great time to open it up to the group. If you are confused by this whole program, then feel free to just say your point out loud or type it in the chat. Give it another minute or so. So far, we have consideration and information from past and current plans and presentations, as well as resident input, ensuring plans that will accommodate growth and the resident to acreage ratio of South Whitehall Township and Parkland School District. Would anyone like to expand on any of these topics and maybe start a discussion? For example, for ensuring that plans will accommodate growth, maybe specific kinds of growth that you see to be important, or how growth would affect community facilities.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
That was my comment, so I thought I would expand on it.
Sure, go ahead.
Just want to make sure that our facilities, which include especially our fire companies, can handle the growth that we're going through right now. Right now, I'm not so sure with the big developments that are coming our way that it'll be sufficient. They're going to need more equipment. They already do need equipment. And I mean, we go all the way to Hazadal Road. So that is quite a distance. So we may need more fire stations. We may need more volunteer firefighters. We will need more equipment for them, more resources for them. So we need to make sure that they're okay and they can handle whatever is coming. It was my understanding that when Todd Poole made his presentation, he did not take into consideration Ridge Farm because it was hypothetical, or I can't remember exactly what was used. So I think we really have to pay attention to that and really have to pay attention to what's coming into Parkview and just make sure that our first responders have everything they need to keep themselves safe and to keep us safe. So that's basically what I meant with that comment.
Great. Yes, I do recall the talk around Todd's presentation in Ridge Farm. We are working with him to see what adjustments can be made for any developments that can come in or out of his plan. But yes, of course, fire resources are obviously crucial to community facilities, and growth will go a long way to affecting that, and it's something that will be on top of should be on top of everybody's mind as we look to recommendations and any effects that future growth will have on South Whitehall Township. So thanks. Would anyone like to expand on the resident to acreage ratio and why you think that information would be significant?
Well, that one was mine.
Oh, okay.
I was involved both with the 2009 comp plan and the 2010 Parks and Recreation Open Space Plan. And I believe there is a national standard out there. So I'm just kind of interested to see how South Whitehall now stacks up against that standard, and if we're in need of more open space, simply because per resident we're a little behind. I believe in the 2010 we were. So I'd be interested to see how we're doing now.
Great. Yeah, and I think that obviously could go a long way too, just with the update of the Parks and Open Space Plan. Would maybe Mike, do you have maybe anything you could add to that? Or any knowledge of what the ratio or how it may compare to a national standard?
Truthfully, no, I don't. I just started here in late 2019 and have not familiarized myself, in that length to the existing plan that we had in place, knowing that a new plan would be coming here sooner rather than later. I think obviously with the growth that we are seeing, it's definitely something that I already have, for the RFP going out on our upcoming park plan to make sure that we are meeting and or exceeding the NRPA park metrics for acreage to residents. That's definitely a goal of mine. But as far as where we stand right now, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. And lastly, we have past and current plans. This is something that has come up a couple times, even in the intro meeting, that sometimes considerations from the past plans become outdated pretty quickly, and that maybe this process should involve residents or staff to look at it and reassess on a shorter time frame. So this does seem to be something that's significant for most people, and it has come up a couple times in the past. So that's in line with what we're seeing. So if there's nothing else, maybe we could jump to the next one.
Just wanted to add, that was,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
so sorry. I wanted to add, since you had just read my second posted note. I just wanted to say that all the plans from the past, we learn things and we can apply them towards the future. I think it's really important too to make sure that whatever we do and however we grow and accommodate these community facilities, our residents are okay with it. And I know you're doing that, but I just wanted to bring it to light again. I wanted to bring the example of Kohler Ridge Park as an example. It's a residential area, and residents may have concerns because they're used to a really quiet area. And I just think we need to be really sensitive to people who are living here, people who are around these facilities. You just have to be really sensitive to what they want, what they desire, what their vision is as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Well, that certainly is a reason why we're having this series of meetings, and I'm sure there's going to be a robust community outreach section of the master plan for Kohler Ridge, so there'll be additional opportunities to participate in that process, and I'm sure there'll be a similar process that goes into the parks and open space plan as well. Greg or Mike, anything there?
No, I think that's correct. We're in a big planning mode at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're trying to get all sorts of points of view, opinions, data together to plan really well. And I think Mike would echo that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, that is our goal. We have had over 300 residents already complete the survey, and we're not done yet as far as collecting feedback for that. I've personally spoken to a couple of residents that live right on the road, and had listened to their concerns and what they're looking for, and what they're excited about, and what their questions are, and all that as well. So definitely taking all that into consideration as we plan this park development.
Great. Sorry, Greg.
I was just going to bring up something.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're talking about parks and, of course, fire protection, and probably police protection goes into that as well. I'm curious to see if anyone within our small group thinks that beyond that and education, something new perhaps we should consider to be a community facility, or is the list that the items that we've had, is that pretty much complete?
Mm-hmm. Some of the things we haven't touched on yet: libraries, hospitals, specifically some of the schools themselves. If not, then we'll jump to question 2. Again, if anything comes up that you would want to go back to for a previous question, feel free to put it in the chat or make a note. You can also upload it to the Google form. So question 2 is, why is this identified data or information significant to community facilities? This may be slightly redundant. We've already discussed some of this, but if you would like to speak further to the importance and significance of some of the data that may have been presented in the 2009 plan, anything important you may have found in the existing conditions or in any of the presentations, like from Todd or anything like that, I'll give you another minute to put in some post-its. And since this is redundant, there might not be much new discussion here, but we can see and move on. park space to resident ratio again, just to show how we stack up against national standards. As a measuring stick, see if we need more. Always great to consider. So we have Marcia in the chat. She said she's struggling with the post-its. That's okay. She's wondering what the base school addition plan numbers are. Marcia, I don't know if you would want to expand on that a little bit.
Okay, there I am.
There
I'm
we
just
go.
curious. I mean, I think we can sit always as a group and say what kind of schools we want. The Parkland schools must have some plan going forward about where they want to put schools, how many schools are going to be there. There must be something that we need to do to work with the school district to figure out what schools are required in terms of what additional housing is being built, for instance. I mean, certainly where I'm living in South Whitehall, there are no kids. But just down the road, only grandchildren. They don't go to schools here. But down the road, we have what's it, Ridge Farms, and there probably will be a lot of kids coming in there. And how do we piggyback our requirements and onto what Parkland School District is planning, or is nobody planning anything?
Well, I can say that a lot of planning is being done. We do coordinate with Parkland School District on a number of things. Annually, we report out the projects as they come in, particularly the residential, but we also do report on the commercial projects as well to Parkland. So they are up to date on pretty much down to the exact number of dwelling units that have been constructed every year here, and certainly what's being planned on the 5-year horizon as well. Also, for the large developments such as Ridge Farm, we require the developer to meet with Parkland School District to coordinate with them, not only just for planning for schools, but also for planning for bus routes and those sort of things. So there is a good deal of coordination with Parkland School District on development. Of course, when it comes back down to it, Parkland really doesn't have much say in where development can go, and we don't have much say as to how they plan where the schools go. But we do coordinate our information so that we can both make informed decisions with regard to expansion and such. So
Okay.
hopefully that answers some of your questions.
It does. I'm just, I'm so new to this area. I know what I worked on planning in Brookline, Mass, and came from there and have an idea after many years of what was going on. And this is all brand new to me.
Right, I know just from living here, I grew up in South Whitehall Township that there are already, since I've left the school district, I'm 24, I think 2 new elementary schools have popped up and everything. So they obviously have some sort of metrics that lead them to alerted to the fact that they need more schools to provide for the community. As Greg said, I know that there's a bunch of coordination. So, and anything else on schools and why that's significant? I mean, there's obvious reasons, but anything else for discussion? If not, we could slightly shift gears to where geographically do you see significant data or information coming in for community facilities? This is a chance to really be pretty specific with some of the discussion. I know up to this point it's been a little broad, but we have mentioned a couple of specific areas, specifically Ridge Farm, the Kohler Ridge Park project. Any specific areas that you would like us to discuss for community facilities? I'll give you another minute to gather your thoughts and post a couple items. Fire down Hossadal Road was mentioned. Anything with geographic specifics that could help us in the recommendation process. You have Parkland gained north of Huckleberry Ridge as being significant. Anyone want to touch on that a little bit?
Well, since that's my comment, basically, as we all know, most of the development is south of Huckleberry Ridge. So gaining new parkland is most likely going to occur in the lesser developed areas to the north. So that's just something that we need to keep in mind, both for achieving new parkland through land development or through simple township acquisition. So it would be good to keep that in mind every time we look at the Jordan Valley and have an eye toward getting more open space up there.
Great. I'm just looking at some of the recommendations from the 2009 plan. I think that is mentioned, if I recall, something above Huckleberry Ridge. Would that be like more towards North Whitehall? Obviously, Ironton Rail Trail connections, things like that, that may not have been fully realized in terms of recommendations from the previous plan. We have another comment: ensuring that residents have access to facilities. Is there someone that could be maybe slightly more specific as to where you think access might be lacking for residents and to what type of facilities?
Hi, that was my comment. And it was incomplete, so I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure that residents in the more highly developed areas do have good access to parks. There's pocket parks throughout the township. There's horse covered bridge park. There's good accessibility now, but in the more remote areas, we have to make sure that residents have access to parks. We have to make sure that in the more remote areas, they have accessibility to any other type of facility, and vice versa. Staff and EMS have that same need. They need to be able to get to places in a hurry, and they need to be able to gain access rather quickly. So that's geographically why it's significant, and where I can just say the more remote areas, they need better access.
Monica, do you think that we need better access to EMS facilities in our more developed areas, or do you think the priority should go to the lesser developed areas?
No, I think that the developed areas, actually, no, I'll be honest. I think we do need maybe more bodies and more equipment, because as we grow, as there's more and more development, equipment's going to be worn out more quickly.
Mm.
And they will need more equipment and they will need more bodies. But I want to make sure that the less accessible areas, I mentioned Hazadal Road, that's way out. That's way west in the township, and there's nothing out there. And I think there should be at least something out there. There should be a fire company out there. But in the same, I'm talking about parks too, like people in the more developed areas, they have accessibility to parks. And I just want to make sure that in the more remote areas that we continue with that. If it's even in a development, that the developer can put a park in there or have green space within the development, just that everybody has accessibility to that. But yeah, the emergency is a really important one for me. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, thanks. I think can sort of sense a couple, frameworks or recommendations developing here. Just again, building on the last plan, I think there were qualifications to, encourage developers to provide plans for some park or open space within their developments. Also, in any places that have, adjoining residential developments, those are great opportunities to provide park space because you can, provide for two developments at once as they build in some of the more denser areas. And of course, providing more facilities or equipment, staff as the township grows to some of the more outreaching areas that maybe don't already have pre-established facilities for things like fire, EMS, police, to make sure everyone feels safe, like they can get, responses when they need it, things like that. So I think we're building towards the right way. There's nothing else with these topics. We'll go ahead to the next one, which is, do you disagree with anything? This could be, not necessarily a disagreement, but something you maybe see in a slightly different light than what's been presented either in existing conditions or the intro meeting, or something from the 2009 plan that you think may be a lot different in 2021 and that you think maybe doesn't have a place anymore in South Whitehall Township, or anything to the contrary as to what we've discussed so far. I'll give you a couple more minutes to think. Or maybe you agree on that an issue exists, but you think we should be framing it in a different way, looking for different kinds of data, different solutions that haven't been presented so far.
There we go.
It's a good comment. Something we haven't necessarily discussed so far, and that's, maintenance on our park system. It means nothing, almost if we acquire some of the space, we do have to maintain it, and that does require county resources. I mean, not county, township resources, township staff, It's a great one. Does whoever posted that one think that maintenance is maybe lacking now, or have any ideas to ways to fix it or support it? I know a lot of that may come down to funding, but any comments there?
Hi, it's me again. That was my comment. I just wanted to say that South Whitehall does a fantastic job. We do have beautiful parks, beautiful park system. I think that with keeping the developments and green space and so forth, keeping that in mind, because I'm not saying no more parks. I'm just saying keep in mind that every park we put, we have to maintain. I do not feel that is the issue now. And just at the last meeting, we talked about new equipment for Jacoby Park. So I feel that they are being maintained. I just don't want to see so much added that we cannot maintain it. And I know this is not the working group for this, but I feel that way about infrastructure too. I think it's whenever we think of expanding, we need to think of the existing infrastructure. Can it handle it? We need to repair and keep infrastructure safe and viable. And that's what I meant with the parks. We just have to make sure that we don't bite off more than what we can chew, and we can maintain what we have. So, thank
Especially
you. And I'm sorry for always, I'm commenting so much, and it's always me, and you're probably sick of me already.
That's why we're here. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Even, the expansion with any new areas that would require new maintenance, that in and of itself would require more township support. But also, even if we don't expand the network itself with new parks, just with the population growth projection alone, it can be assumed that the existing system is going to have an uptick in usage, and that by itself would also require, a bigger emphasis on some maintenance as well.
I'll just chime in too real quick. Monica, thank you for that. I couldn't agree with you more, 100%. And that also is going to be looked at in the upcoming open space park recreation trail plan that we are going to be doing into next year. But I agree with you 110%. I think that's vital in that the spaces we do acquire or do anything to, whether they're just passive open space or active recreation areas. I think first thing we have to look at is it something we can handle, something we can maintain? So thanks for that.
Thanks, Mike. You do a good job. Thank you.
Thanks.
And that could be, again, something to keep in mind as we look towards recommendations in the future, potential suggestions on how we could bolster maintenance, pursue new funding sources, or come up with systems to ensure that our parks, stay vibrant and, stay as a point of emphasis here in the township. Marcia says in the chat that as a new resident, she's impressed by the park system that exists now, and it adds to the quality of life. I would tend to agree as well. As a facilitator, that some of the parks here are great, and we just want to make sure we have recommendations that keep it that way. So, thanks. Anything else that anyone might disagree with so far, or maybe wants to put out there that might be slightly different than what we've discussed already? No? Okay. So next, moving on to our next question. Anything surprising, that may have come up in existing conditions, surprised by, maybe need for schooling, surprised by the fact that we might not have enough equipment for things like fire and EMS, surprised at, whatever it may be, that some goals in the comp plan may not have been reached from 2009. That has come up, in the past, that it's somewhat surprising that these things are only looked at every 10 years, and there maybe should be more in place to, realize some of the goals. Again, a lot of that comes down to funding. So I'll give anyone a few minutes to come up with anything they may find surprising here in community facilities in the township. So maybe community facilities goals are one of the strengths of the 2009 comp plan. I mean, I'm looking now, one of the top goals was acquiring space. So obviously along Jordan Creek, maintaining covered bridge. Those are all things that I think are well on their way. So I could say that that's been accomplished.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised. Having come from the transportation meeting last night, how much of these recommendations and goals we've actually done. I'm impressed with particularly the Parks and Rec department for their good work at this. So, and I think that goes to the community support of the Parks and Rec as well. Usually these things you have to be pushed by the elected officials, and this shows that Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and the community facilities, because we've had a very good renovation of the township building. We're improving the yard and garden center. We've gotten the emergency management center down at the Citronia ambulance building. So we've actually done a very good amount with what we've done in the past 12 years. And that I think demonstrates that there's a lot of community support for that sort of thing. And I'm impressed by that.
We have another comment here about just about revisiting, the comp plan every 5 years. I think if I had to guess, that's looking like a strong possibility of being incorporated into a lot of these goals and recommendations. Again, impressed with the quality of parks and facilities in the township. I think that's probably a widely shared belief. We do have Marcia in the chat. This is a fairly large township, over 20,000 residents, expected to grow pretty significantly on a rate basis. Only having 4 volunteer fire organizations. So that's, again, goes along with another one of the themes we've touched on a couple times, is the need to keep fire departments, EMS, police in mind as we think about the future of community facilities. Just a question that might goes along with that. Are there, are there additional fire organizations that support these volunteer fire operations, maybe from county fire? I don't know, anything else, or is it? I'm assuming those aren't the only 4. I don't. Maybe Greg knows more.
I'm certainly no expert on the EMS services here, but we do have 4 volunteer organizations. 3 are fire. 1 is more or less, I believe, the ambulance corps. Triclover is just over the border in North Whitehall. I know there are a number in surrounding municipalities. I do know that they all are mutually supportive of each other. So we have great relationships with the volunteer organizations in the surrounding municipalities. I know we cover for them and they cover for us as needed. I do know that we have a fairly robust county organization for their EMS services. And once again, there's a good working relationship there as well. So I think we're doing fairly well here. I've not heard very much come out of the EMS community that we're severely understaffed. I do know that nationally speaking, we are suffering kind of a drought of volunteers.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just something that's generational or not, but that's obviously something that we've got to take into account when we look at this sort of thing as well. I know the 2009 comp plan recommended looking at a professional fire department, and that's very expensive. And depending upon how the volunteers come in, that may be a necessity at some point. But once again, that's something we have to look at more closely, and certainly watch over time.
Right. I think, again, that could perhaps lead right into a recommendation as something that's, surprising. Thinking of ways to encourage more volunteers or ways to solve any lack in some of the service in some of these facility areas. And I know some of this may also be covered in maybe larger countywide hazard mitigation plans, things like that. So any recommendations there, uh, maybe should keep in mind as well or use for reference. If anyone has anything else here, feel free to share. If not, we could move to the last question. I think we got about 20 minutes left. We do need more equipment. We only have one aerial ladder truck. All right, so we'll move on to final question is, what are we missing for community facilities? Anything that is missing in our existing conditions data, anything that's missing in some of our future scenarios that have been previously presented, anything that maybe is missing entirely from the 2009 plan that is now extremely relevant in 2021. Again, I'll give you a minute to think. Is there any specific data source that you would like us to consider or that may better help us create recommendations is another way to think of this question. Something that'll help us be better informed as the community facilities working group. It's a great one. EMS equipment inventory, so we can compare ourselves against national standards for a community of our size. I think we had already previously established that we're missing a similar inventory or ratio for our parkland open space system. Marcia said in the chat, we're missing a more recent map of facilities. The most recent one was in 2010. I think the natural process would be for the official maps to be updated after the comp plan is completed. Is that correct, Greg?
Most likely as part of the comp plan.
Okay.
The comp plan usually, like the 2009 plan, has a whole bunch of supporting data to it, and this would be considered supporting data for that.
Right.
I think I'd be interested to see some sort of, I'm not quite sure how to say this, but one of the things that we've been discussing is resiliency and, how to handle, obviously our EMS services are out there doing their jobs during, disasters, be it flood, storms, whatnot. It'd be interesting to see how other parts of our system fare under that. The township, radio systems, the communication systems, and now more and more the township data systems, since we're starting to rely so much on that sort of thing. So I'd be interested to see what kind of, how we stack up in resiliency with those sort of things.
That's a great one. I'm adding that in there. Kind of going along with that, resiliency just pops into my mind. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic and our hospital system and how we've responded to that. Are there any more comments or data that you think has so far been missing in some of the areas we maybe haven't touched on as much, like hospitals or even libraries, anything else like that? Opting into community messaging systems. Was that you, Greg?
No.
That's a great one as well.
That was me.
Monica?
Sorry. That's something I would like to see happen. And I think it would, well, it's obvious it would just help people stay more informed. And I also just wanted to remark, I know you did the best you could with outreach for this. I wish we had more residents in the group. So, and I'm really grateful to the ones that are here. So, and thank you for getting the word out as best that you could. But yeah, I think that's really important to have some type of database and a message alert system. So thank you.
Thanks for all your input. Thanks for being here, of course.
Yeah.
You've given a lot. Anything else we're missing? I don't think so. And so we could close out with any broad key takeaways, just as a summary of all the discussion points we've had so far. Anything that sticks out in your mind that we want to make sure doesn't get lost as we move away from this discussion and into the next meetings. This key takeaways could be anything from a recommendation you think may already be performing in your head, specific areas that you think need some emphasis, anything along those lines would be great. Thanks. Expanding our park system in a sustainable way. I think that's a good reflection of some of our discussion so far. Marcia added inventory for EMS services. As we grow, the ability to maintain what we have and make sure our first responders have the support they need to accommodate our growth.
Good.
I was about to type that one in if no one else did it themselves. I think I'll add something in here about community input on new park acquisitions. And better systems to compare our township against national averages across all community facilities. Any last second additions before we wrap it up here? So, hearing none, I'll just remind anyone again, if you were to be around tomorrow night and something pops into your head that you forgot to mention or you think would apply to when we meet again next week or any of our other community facility meetings, just a reminder to visit the community facilities subpage on the South Whitehall Township website. You can review the workbook again, and that might help you think of something new. You can review some of the presentations from Todd and the transportation presentation, and all that may give you some new ideas, and you can click again on the working group meeting 1 discussion template, and you can use the Google form to type in any additional input that you may have. And for anyone that's signed up for community facilities that didn't attend today, they will have this same chance as well. So even though you didn't hear it today, there may be additional input that we reference in future meetings that will come from this template. I believe 13 people signed up for this group, and hopefully we get some great input from everybody. So all of our responses here on this Jamboard will be downloaded and shared on the subpage as well and posted along with other meeting materials and the recording. Let me throw up some of this key takeaways, see if there's anything else in the working group. Just a reminder, our next meeting, Working Group Meeting 2, will be with Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and they'll help us talk through tools and best practices that they have used in the field to develop their own community facilities recommendations, and it'll give us a chance to talk with some of the people that know best and how to deal with these things in a useful manner as we look to the future. So with that, I'd like to again thank everyone for your attendance. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to the township. Greg or Mike, do you have any parting wisdom as we go?
If anybody wants their own copy,
I forgot. Yeah.
you can pick these up at the township building. You just stop in at the reception desk and ask for Community Facilities Workbook.
Right.
And I'll just quickly thank everybody that joined us here tonight. I thought it was a great discussion and great feedback. So looking forward to seeing what comes out of the comp plan here. So thanks.
Great. So
Yep.
thanks
Thank you all.
again, everyone. Our contact information is also in the workbook if you have any follow-up questions. With that, I wish everyone a good night and see you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Night.